Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by Zapier and Clear. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is my co-host, Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico, how you doing?
Hey, John, how's it going?
Pretty good. What's up with you today?
Two things. One, it's super hot in Rome. This seems unreal. And second, I've been taking notes on iOS 11, and I'm right in the middle of the process of note-taking and watching all the WWDC sessions that I didn't go to and saving all of the screenshots and the details that I find interesting. And this is the stage right before I create a mind map of my article, which will eventually become an article, like actual chapters and in my text editors. But before it is a mind map, it's a bunch of notes. I'm using the Apple Notes app, and it's like I have a few dozen notes right now, and it's all kind of messy. I'm using a new system this time, which is based on individual topics rather than 50 notes for all the sessions that I watch.
Oh, okay.
So it's better than last year, but it's still a lot of notes all over the place.
I feel like part of your system must be the binge watching of Parks and Rec that you did recently, because
yes.
that gets you ready to watch a lot of WWC videos.
Yes, it's basically binge watching for iOS nerds. That's what it is. Then I take a bunch of notes, and then I have to sit down like few afternoons to transform those notes into a coherent mind map that makes some sense.
Well, this show is keeping me on top of the WWC stuff too. I haven't watched nearly as many as you, but between last week's show and this week's show, I've been watching quite a few myself. You know, one thing before we get started, I wanted to mention, did you see the tweet today from this new Twitter account called Pictures of Podcasts? And they did a little illustration of episode 9 where we talked about competing with system apps.
Yeah, that was so lovely. Like, I love how there's the calculator icon, and there's the icons of pcalc and solver, I think.
Yep.
Sort of like they've been humanized, and they're struggling to catch the Apple calculator guy. They're running like on a track field or something.
Right.
And I love the expression of the calculator icon that is crying because he's running from those two.
I know, he's been run down by pcalc and solver. I liked it a lot too, and it was super appropriate for what we're talking about today too, because I guess it was about 2 weeks ago when we talked about competing with system apps, and when we were at WWDC, there were a number of new features that were introduced to iOS 11 and some of the system apps that are going to have an effect on existing third-party apps, and we thought we would talk about some of those today. We're gonna go over really just 3 main areas that we want to highlight. The first deals with screenshots and markup, which are features that are sprinkled throughout the system in iOS 11, and what that means to various sorts of apps that have features like that. Then we're going to talk also about notes and about password autofill for apps, which is very similar to the password autofill feature that already exists on Safari, but it's coming to apps now as well.
Yeah, and I want to start from PDF documents because I feel like it's from a technical and also business perspective, it's a fascinating story that Apple is painting here. There's 2 sides to improvements to PDF documents on iOS 11. There's the technical aspect of Apple now providing the same PDFKit engine that they offer on the Mac for developers to render and preview and deal with PDF documents. Now it's coming to iOS. And there's also the consumer aspect of annotation tools, the Markup tool for images and PDF documents now being offered basically in every PDF preview that uses Quick Look. So now there's going to be annotation tools everywhere on iOS 11. So I want to start from the business aspect of PDFKit because I think we need to address this for developers. PDFKit is a new set of APIs. It's a new framework that will enable developers to render, display, and interact with PDF documents instead of having to rely on a third-party framework and library to achieve the same functionality. And namely, one of the most popular frameworks that developers have been using is called PDFKit, which is this engine that has been licensed to a few third-party developers, to many actually third-party developers. In fact, if you use any third-party PDF editor or even email clients, there's a good chance that those apps under the hood are already using PS PDFKit. It's so popular because they also offer an Android version, a web version, and it's been the go-to engine for rendering and displaying and editing, visualizing PDF documents everywhere. But PDFKit, which is made by Apple and has been on the Mac for years now coming to iOS, it offers all the basic display, layout, and annotation features that you would expect from a PDF viewer. And it also supports annotations, of course, text extraction, so you can select text and you can copy text to the clipboard. It's got accessibility built in, so it supports VoiceOver and all the other accessibility features of iOS. And because it's free and it will be built right into iOS, I could see how for some developers it would be wiser to adopt a free solution that is native to the platform rather than paying a license for a third-party library. But the counter-argument of there's a good chance that PS PDFKit, the third-party solution, is still going to be more powerful and it's still going to be more popular than the Apple default engine, because PDFKit by Apple has been known for having many issues and many bugs that don't give developers all the control they might want. And PS PDFKit has also been known for being extremely versatile and flexible. It's been used by apps, for example, like PDF Viewer, which is made by the same developers of PS PDFKit, and it's basically a way to showcase the functionalities of the framework as an app. And PDF Viewer, it's an excellent PDF editor. We've been writing about it on Mac Stories, and it's one of our favorite PDF apps. But I'm pretty sure that this engine is also used in other popular editors for iOS. I don't know if PDF Expert by Riddle uses PS PDFKit, but I'm pretty sure it does. So my take here is that it's gonna be a problem for PS PDFKit that Apple now offers a free, built-in, accessible by default solution. But I can also see how maybe if developers want more control, more flexibility for displaying PDF documents, they're still going to rely on a third party. Overall, though, if you're a user, like from a consumer perspective, you probably won't notice any changes, which is what makes this interesting, because we can talk about it, and it's a big change for these developers, for these businesses, but as a user, you probably won't notice a single difference, which is kind of neat.
All right. Well, you step back. There's been a lot of movement on PDFs on iOS recently and on the Mac. I mean, there's just been a lot of competition, a lot of new editors. And as you said, now we've got PDFKit coming to iOS. And, Apple had some really serious bug issues, at least on the Mac, with PDFKit not that long ago. It was less than a year ago. And I wonder if part of that was part of the transition to getting it ready to bring it over to iOS.
Oh, that could be.
It seems as though they have stabilized that from what I can tell so far, although I have not, obviously, since it's not built into any iOS apps yet, have not tried it on that platform, just on macOS. But the macOS issues, at least for myself, have largely gone away. I think that the advantage that PS PDFKit has over PDFKit itself is that they work with a lot of big corporations, a lot of apps that are built not necessarily for selling to consumers, but used within enterprise solutions. And those are the kind of big companies that are going to need more than just an iOS app. They're going to need an Android solution and a web solution and a bunch of different options. And if they can go to PS PDFKit and have a one-stop shop to get all of that and not have to code against different frameworks in order to make their app, that's more of a cross-platform solution that will probably work better for those big companies. But I hear you. I think there's definitely, at least in the consumer market, I can see a lot of the smaller editor apps moving to what's free and built into the iOS 11 itself.
Yeah, and especially if you're an indie developer and you're making a new document manager or a new PDF app, you might want to consider using the default and free solution by Apple. But I can imagine that maybe some established players like Riddle or other PDF editors that use already PS PDFKit and it's been working out great for them, I can see why they might be like, well, I'm just going to stick with the third-party solution because it's been stable and Apple's engine has been known for having problems on the Mac, so why should I trust Apple at the first version on iOS 11? So hopefully we won't notice any major disruptions in terms of PDF workflows in our favorite apps if they do change to PDFKit by Apple. ideally we won't notice any kind of transitions. Like, I'm trying to imagine what could go wrong. Like, well, now you cannot, I don't know, you cannot perform this kind of annotation anymore because we have switched to the Apple PDF engine, and that kind of annotation is no longer supported. Right? Obviously, you wouldn't want something like that to happen.
Right. Well, and that's another reason I think why people might not, why third-party developers might not switch, because they've probably already written custom code against PDFKit to extend it beyond whatever the core functionality is, because that's the only way to differentiate yourself from something like PDF Viewer, which is PDF's PDF Viewer app that is free. So if you're going to sell a PDF editor at this stage in the game on iOS, you really do have to provide some sort of extra functionality if you want to charge for the app. And I think that's already being done, and presumably it's being done against PDFKit already. Thanks to Zapier for supporting App Stories. Zapier is easy automation for busy people. Zapier is the glue that ties together all sorts of web apps, moving information between them automatically so you don't have to. That's exactly how we use it here at Mac Stories. We're a small team, and Zapier allows us to focus on creating content without getting bogged down with busy work. I've got another teachy tip for you today. Another Zap that Federico uses monitors his Gmail so that if he gets an email about a billing issue with a service that he uses, it automatically creates a Todoist task and sends him a push notification via pushover. Another way to use Zapier is to supercharge bookmarking. You can create a Zap that monitors tweets that you've favorited and takes the URLs in those tweets and sends them to a read-it-later service like Pocket. Over the past few episodes of App Stories, I've highlighted a wide variety of things you can do with Zapier. What makes all these things possible is that Zapier connects with over 700 apps, including over 17 of its own functions that do things like parse text from emails, run workflows on a schedule, format and translate text, and much more. Zapier also supports detailed workflows with multiple steps and filtering, so they'll only run on the data you need them to use. If you're listening to this or a reader of Mac Stories, there's a good chance that you've dabbled in automating iOS or your Mac. If you have but haven't tried Zapier yet, check it out. Zapier is one of the most powerful ways to automate repetitive tasks. Give it a try and let Zapier make you happier. Visit zapier.com/appstories for a 2-week free trial. Again, that's zapier.com/appstories. Plans start at just $20 per month. Thanks to Zapier for sponsoring the show.
So the other change that is occurring on iOS 11 from a user perspective that most people are going to notice is the new Markup as PDF option that is built, I think, into most Apple default apps, and I'm pretty sure there will be a native extension in every document that can be converted to PDF. So if you choose this new action extension that is called the Markup as PDF, you will be shown this PDF view that has the markup option that has been available, I think, in Apple Mail and in other apps for a few years now. Now this functionality has been extended throughout iOS 11, and it's available in every Apple app for now, and I'm pretty sure they will be available in every third-party app that is, supports generating PDF documents. So when you open Markup, there's going to be a pencil icon, and when you tap it, you will enter the annotation mode. So you can draw lines, you can make selections. There's 3 tools that you can use, like a marker, a pen, and a pencil. There's an eraser. There's a limited selection of colors, and there's also a plus button that allows you to draw shapes, to use a magnifier, even to add your signature, which is synced from iCloud, and of course to add arrows and text boxes to a PDF document. So it's a basic selection of all the tools you might want to use on a daily basis. But what is interesting to me is that Apple is not offering a preview app like they have on the Mac. It's more of a view that is embedded into a bunch of apps and a bunch of places, rather than a single app on the home screen where you go there and you edit PDF documents. It's a more pervasive solution that can be available anywhere, but that still uses iCloud, for example, to sync your signature across multiple devices. So I think this will be extremely popular. I know that I've been a fan of the markup view into Apple Mail before, and now to have this kind of option in Safari, or to have this option in other document managers, such as the Files app, for example, I think it's going to be very convenient to be able to if you just want to add basic annotations to a document, and maybe you don't want to go to the App Store to download an app, like a PDF editor to just draw a circle around some text or to put an arrow on a document, now you can just use the default extension. And I think this will maybe be a problem for some of these third-party PDF editing apps, because it is not a special app like a new app that Apple is making. It's an extension that is available anywhere. So there's very low pressure, low friction in terms of starting to use this feature, because it's right there and you can use it everywhere. So I'm curious to see if maybe for basic annotations, of course, if you want a more complex workflow, you want to search, you want to do OCR, you want to do chapter navigation, you will still need standalone PDF app. But maybe for basic stuff, you got an extension right there. So why not?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there are a couple of things that are really interesting about it to me. One is that it's a continuation of a trend that I think started with iOS 8, which is the apps turning into features that are sprinkled throughout the operating system as extension points, as opposed to necessarily having to be a core app. It's different with Apple, because if you're a third-party developer, you're going to have a core app, and then you go out to the extension points. And Apple's not even doing that. Like, as you said, there's no preview app. There's no PDF viewer app that belongs to Apple. Mm-hmm. It's just sprinkled out as an action extension throughout the entire OS, which is really powerful, I think, and especially since it's got a familiar interface. It's similar to what's come before in terms of marking up emails and that sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe you could argue that the Files app is sort of replacing preview at this point, because you can basically go into the preview folder in iCloud Drive. You can tap on a PDF document and you will get the markup view, which has the same tools, basically almost all the same tools as preview on the Mac. So it's not called preview, but that's basically what it does on iOS with the new Files app. So I think it's smart that Apple is, rather than saying, now this year we made X new apps that you can find on the App Store, rather they're sort of splitting up the functionality into multiple extensions or widgets or features of iCloud. So I think that's really smart. We'll see how it goes. What about, John, screenshots? What's happening in iOS 11?
Well, with screenshots, it's pretty exciting if you take a lot of screenshots, as we do, which I know is not really the definition of exciting for most people.
It is exciting. Can't you feel the excitement?
I can totally feel it. But if you look at our iPhones, I'm sure, and our iPads, I'm sure you'll find, well, you're probably much better about cleaning up after yourself than I am, because you've got your home screen organized better than I do. But yes, we take a lot of screenshots for Mac Stories, and I have, I don't know, hundreds, thousands maybe of screenshots sitting in my photos, because I don't always get rid of them right away, because I think to myself, well, I might want to swap this one out with this one before I publish the article. So then I forget about them, and they're there in between all the photos of my family and everything. And with the new screenshot feature, you can take a screenshot, and it does a little animation where the image kind of shrinks down into the corner of the screen on an iPad, and you can tap it and then mark it up with basic markup tools. And you can then do something. There's a share button, so you can share it. For us, what I really like is I can put it through workflow right away and send it up to the CDN and grab the URL back and just drop it into a text document that I'm working on for Mac Stories. Or you could send it with iMessages, or you could attach it to an email, or do whatever you want. And when you're finished, you tap done, and you can either delete it or you can save it to your camera roll, which is great, because I love being able to just delete it. And I know you can also, the other thing that's kind of cool is you can take several screenshots and they stack up in the corner, and then you can just go through and edit them one by one and deal with them and then delete them all and never have them show up in your photos, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I was surprised when I realized that even if you stack multiple screenshots and then you hit share in this new quick markup view, you share all the images at once. And I realized this when I was trying to automate, of course, this screenshot workflow with the workflow app. And I realized, well, now this workflow is dealing with multiple screenshots at the same time, which is very nice for me. But what I really appreciate is that I can make quick edits, like I can crop, I can add annotations. then I can share, or I can run the workflow extension. I can basically perform an action right there. And then when I'm finished and I hit done, the system asks me, do you want to delete the screenshot or do you want to keep it? And I'm realizing now that in most cases, I do want to perform an action and then get rid of the screenshot. So my library doesn't get cluttered anymore with thousands of screenshots. And I'm faster at dealing with an image right away, archiving a screenshot or sending it to you, for example. So I think this is a great change, and it sort of speaks to the popularity of the screenshot as the universal capture method. Because what I love about screenshots is that everybody uses them, right? They're no longer just like a geeky thing to do on a smartphone. They're universal. They generally save to an open image format, whether it's PNG or JPEG. Almost everybody knows how to take them, and they have become a way to, when an app doesn't let you export something or select text, I know that it's an ugly solution, but taking a screenshot usually works.
Right.
And now it's easier than ever to deal with that screenshot. So I think this is the kind of feature that is great for nerds, even better for normal people. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, no, it's an ugly solution in some respects, but it's also super convenient. Yeah, there's all sorts of use cases for it. It's going to have an effect on apps like a Notable, which is one of our favorite screenshotting apps that we use at Mac Stories a lot. I remember when I first started writing at Mac Stories, we used a whole bunch of different screenshotting apps because none of them had all the features that we needed. And then a Notable came along and we basically abandoned most of the rest of them because it does basically everything someone would want to do with a screenshot, I think, at least that what we'd want to do with a screenshot. And I think I'll still end up using a Notable because I do believe that it looks better and it has better tools for certain things you can do. For instance, you can fuzz out and obscure text or things in a screenshot. Like if you're screenshotting something that has a password in it, you can do that and you can't do that with the iOS feature. So there'll be things that I will still use it for, but for quick screenshots, I think what's built in is going to be sufficient for most people.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Apple is not doing the pixelation or like to obfuscate parts of an image.
Right.
Because that seems like one of the most popular scenarios. Like I want to share something, but I don't want to show you parts of it. So I'm actually surprised that Apple is not doing that. But whatever. Moving on to Notes. I feel like Notes is becoming maybe the best app that Apple makes alongside Safari, maybe on iOS. I know it's my top two. It's Notes and Safari at this point.
Yeah, it's getting to the point where it's almost like a pro app. It's almost like an iWork.
It is.
It's like it's part of iWork almost because it's got so many features now that you can do with it.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe it's kind of like Evernote. It's becoming Apple's Evernote.
Yeah, or Microsoft's OneNote.
Yeah, I prefer Evernote, just because I can make a work chat joke.
Yes,
with iMessage work chat built into Apple Notes. Luckily, we're not getting work chat with Apple Notes. What we are getting is a series of interesting Sherlockings occurring with iOS 11. So first, Notes is getting a document scanner, so you can use the camera to scan documents and save them into Notes and share them as PDF documents with other apps. The document scanner UI is very similar to previous solutions such as ScanBot or Scanner Pro, Prismo Go. All of these other scanner apps are gonna have a problem because now you can open a note, you can tap on I think it's a plus icon, you can choose scan document. You will get this real-time camera view that asks you to point the camera at a document. There's real-time margin and document detection. So it detects the edges and it tries to align the camera with the edges of the document. Then you take the picture, it does some automatic cropping for you. You can readjust the margins and the angles properly manually if you want. And then you save and you're done. And it's into Apple Notes and you can take advantage of all the other features of Apple Notes, which means you can share a note with someone, for example, using your iCloud account or using iMessage, or you can type some text alongside the note, or you can give the note a bit of structure. You can add multiple documents into the same note. And if you want, you can also edit the same document that you've already scanned. It's a very pretty interface, actually. You can change the color tone, you can You can change the orientation, I think. You can do some cropping again if you want to get the document just right. And then you can export, or you can just keep things in in Apple Notes, or you can even password protect a note because it's, again, uses Touch ID and it's built right into Apple Notes. So this is the best example of the kind of Sherlocking that Apple does, which is they take the basic aspects of a feature that other developers have built third-party apps for. Apple knows these apps are popular, so Apple takes the basics, integrates them with a system app, and gives them a reason to exist within the native features of the app. So iCloud support, integration with Siri and other Apple apps, Touch ID protection, and it becomes a basic solution for millions of people. But then, of course, if you're a pro user and you want more, like you want a different camera UI, or you want to do OCR for text recognized in a document, which Apple Notes is not going to do, I think, then you move on to the third-party solution. So this is the best definition of Sherlocking. It's a great example of Sherlocking in iOS 11. For basic document scanner purposes, I think most people are going to be happy with this because it's really nicely done. But if you want just a little more, then you got to use the third-party solution.
Right. It does a lot of the core features of those third-party apps, including I think it also does tilt detection. Yeah. So it can, if you take the picture at an angle, it'll square off the document so it looks good. And then you have the ability to sign documents too, I think, as well, if you turn them into a PDF, right?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, you can turn them into a PDF, and then you can do all the things we said before about PDF documents on iOS 11.
Right.
So it's integrated with the system in a bunch of ways, but you want more if you want to have proper organizations with folders, for example, or you want to do tagging, or you want to do automation with Scanbot and third-party cloud services. But of course, Apple Notes is not going to work for you.
Right. And Prismo Go has a cool feature where it'll read a document to you, which
Yep.
I don't really have a personal reason to use that, but I can see that might be attractive to someone. It is an interesting example of Sherlocking. There's another one with Notes though too, which is you can do inline drawing now, inline note taking, which we had the ability to create images and handwritten notes in Notes before, but they kind of were handled. It was a modal thing where you would enter the drawing mode and you would do your drawing or take your handwritten note, and then it would close again, and it was treated like an image really that was attached to the note. But now you can actually handwrite in the middle of a note, and any text that you've typed into the note just kind of flows around the handwriting, which I think is very similar to what obviously you can do with apps like GoodNotes and Notability, which have a lot more features. Again, just like the scanner apps do, they have the ability to do things like record audio if you're a student in a lecture hall taking notes in class, and they have many other features and customizations that you can do that Notes doesn't have. But for a lot of people, I think being able to just take handwritten notes right into the note itself, and especially this new feature, which is on the iPad, where you can open up a note right from the lock screen without even opening and unlocking your iPad, and start taking notes as though you were working on a clipboard, I guess, with a sheet of paper on it, and take notes immediately. That's a pretty powerful feature.
Yeah, you can just tap the pencil on the locked iPad and you're back into the note that I think you can set the last view note, for example, in the settings. And
right.
All of these changes in notes are, I think it's a very fine balance between bringing more features to Notes at the risk of making the app cluttered, which is sort of the problem that Evernote faced years ago, but also bringing features that people expect so that they seem obvious. Of course, Notes should have a document scanner, or of course, Notes should have inline drawings and handwritten annotations. I'm interested to see how the character recognition works with handwritten messages. I tried that when I was in San Jose for WWDC when Mike and I were writing with the Apple Pencil. And in my initial tests, it took a few minutes for iOS 11 Beta 1 to recognize handwritten text as searchable text.
Right.
So I believe it's going to improve and it's going to be almost instantaneous.
Yeah. I was going to say the notes taking, the handwritten notes feature, I could have predicted that, I think, because it takes advantage of the pencil and really leverages the other hardware that Apple's offering. I was really shocked by the scanning feature. I would never have guessed that they would have built a scanner into notes myself. But
Yeah, well, Apple likes to say, oh, we have the best camera on mobile devices, so why not use it for more?
yeah, that's true. Thanks to Clear for supporting App Stories. Back in 2012, Clear debuted on the iPhone 4 as the most delightfully simple list-making app you'll ever try. 5 years later, fashion has changed, but Clear's style endures. Clear 2 returns this fall, rebuilt from the bottom up and ready to reignite your excitement for the app. Sign up with the link in the show notes to join the private beta test this August. Thanks again to Clear for sponsoring App Stories.
And then we move on to this other kind of, I don't want to say Sherlocking, but it's the kind of default solution that I totally understand why Apple is doing this. And after watching the session and reading the explanations, I think it makes total sense. And it's password autofill for apps. So password autofill for apps is a way to bring the Safari autofill functionality and the iCloud keychain feature that is been available on iOS for a few years now into the iOS keyboard, the default QuickType keyboard of iOS. And the way that Apple is doing this is very natural, very easy. In every login screen, in every app, doesn't have to be Safari, doesn't have to be an Apple app. As long as you conform to the basics of login fields and text views on iOS, you will get these two features. One is the autofill. So you will get suggestions for accounts that have been saved into your iCloud keychain. So, like already on iOS 10, when you try to log in into Amazon.com, for example, and you get a suggestion on the QuickType keyboard, you get, is this your email address? We have an account for you saved in the iCloud keychain for Safari. And you tap it and you fill the username and the email address and the password. Now that is going to be available in apps. So the apps will be able to associate themselves with the website. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And you tap the suggestion and the login will be auto-filled and you will be logged in. No need to use a password manager. No need to look up the password. But if you want to, you can also look up the password with a new key button that is available on the right side of the QuickType bar when you're into a login field. And when you tap the key, you will be presented with the same interface of iCloud Keychain. If you go into the iOS settings and if you go into the password screen, you authenticate with Touch ID and you will be able to see all of the websites and all of the passwords that you've saved into iCloud using Safari. With iOS 11, that will be available into every app that uses login fields. So you will be able to look up any email address or any password for any login you have. Basically, this doesn't kill 1Password because, of course, 1Password does a whole lot more. But just like I found myself using iCloud Keychain all the time in Safari with Safari autofill, I can see why I'm going to use the 1Password extension a whole lot less with iOS 11.
Yep, I agree. I can tell you there's been a million times when I've gone to a web service and gone through Safari just because I was already logged in on Safari and not logged into the app just because it was easier. So, I get logged out of Trello somehow in the app or Amazon or whatever, and I just use Safari because it's easier because I was already logged in there because I didn't want to have to go find the password and type it into the app. And now you don't have to do that because that'll be available hopefully as third-party developers start adopting this.
Yeah, and it's interesting how Apple is using this. I mean, in hindsight, I guess it makes total sense. To associate an app with a website, Apple is using the same system that is already in place for this kind of relationship, which is universal links. So, for example, an app like Todoist, which is both a native app on iOS and a website, they can make it so that every time you tap on a Todoist.com link, it goes straight into a specific view into the native iOS app. Because there's a two-way association that is secure and that is unique to the website and the app. And the system knows that the Todoist.com website belongs and is associated with the Todoist iOS app. So apps will be able to look up accounts in iCloud Kitchen using this system, or if a developer doesn't want to use universal links because maybe it doesn't make sense, but if they still have a web service, they can still perform this kind of association using, you got to put a file on your server, you got to communicate with the app. It's a technical detail that most people don't need to know. But what matters is there's going to be a lot of cases where, sure, you could look up your account and password using the 1Password extension, and I don't think developers are going to stop embedding the 1Password buttons into their apps. But from a user perspective, again, as a user, it will be just easier to tap on an email address on the quick type bar, or to tap on the key button that is right there above the keyboard, rather than having to tap on the 1Password icon, bringing up the share sheet, tapping again on 1Password, and then authenticating. You just save a bunch of steps, and you log in immediately, and everything is saved in iCloud. It's super secure. Apple doesn't see your password. Of course, apps don't see your passwords, and it's just more convenient. So I'm not going to stop using 1Password. I mean, I'm a 1Password subscriber, so I'm not going to stop, but I'm going to use this a lot.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I agree with you about 1Password as well, because it does a lot more than just what this new functionality is doing. So there are a lot of reasons to continue to use that. But I do like this, and I think what's really also useful about it is that it's easy to implement. They're building on an existing technology that has been around for a couple of years, which means a lot of developers probably already use universal links and can just build this out without too much trouble. And watching that video, that session video, it really didn't seem like it was too much trouble to do it, even if you don't use universal links and you have to put a little file up on your server. Well, that's it for this week, folks. Thanks again to our sponsors, Zapier and Clear. Also, thanks for all your feedback. We really appreciate it. And as always, you can get in touch with us by email at hello@appstories.net, or on Twitter, where the show is @appstoriesnet. And you can also find me and Federico at macstories.net, and on Twitter, where Federico is @Viticci, that's VITICCI, and I'm @John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.